she had walked through yesterday, rolling hills punctuated with carefully managed forest. She felt like she had been walking in circles. Trixie had left the road during her flight from Ponyville to keep anyone from following her, but now she was regretting her choice. Even with her little magical trick to find north, she felt lost. Her stomach rumbled. She had very little food over the past few days. "I'm the great and powerful Trixie," she murmured, like a miranda of encouragement. Yes, she would be fine. The great and powerful Trixie could take a little discomfort. She was strong. She'd had to be strong for years, ever since. Before her thoughts drifted into the dark place again, Trixie crested a hill, and a slight before her vanished. The bad thoughts away from her mind. A small town, slightly smaller than Ponyville had been, but still big enough for what she needed, had become visible only half a mile away. There was something oddly familiar about the village, but then she had only been through so many towns on her travels that she was used to the feeling of familiarity. A smile broke out across her face. Finally, the great and powerful Trixie succeeds. Time to put on a show. She paused and looked down at her dirty, road-worn body. Maybe after a warm bath, some food, and a soft bed. Well, she had left what little money she had in Ponyville, her spirits buoyed. The great and powerful Trixie cantered down a hill, merging with a road that led into the town. The sun was starting to set in the sky as she made the rest of her way down to the town. She had to find an inn or something, and convince the matron to let her sleep there for a performance or something. Surely it wouldn't be that hard, not for someone of her talents. The feeling of familiarity wouldn't shake from Trixie as she trotted through the town. It was like her hooves knew where to go, her body instinctively guiding through the streets. It was beginning to disturb her a little. She was getting some odd looks too. She knew even in her dishevelled state she was still the most gorgeous pony in all of Equestria. These looked strange, as though Trixie was somehow familiar to them. Perhaps she had performed here, and they were shocked that such a marvellous creature could be reduced to that? Trixie, lost in thought, nearly rammed into an older pony, a white-pelted mare, glasses perched on her face. She recovered, scowled at the mare. "Watch where you're walking! Don't you know who I am?" the great and powerful Trixie exclaimed in irritation. The mare seemed not to notice, instead looking closely at the younger pony. "What are you looking at?" "Trixie, is that you?" "It is you, isn't it? I'm your old schoolteacher, Belle Shower," the mare exclaimed, and Trixie felt her heated anger instantly die, replaced with a sick coldness deep inside of her. Her body quivered slightly, her pupils shrinking. "Where have you been? We haven't seen you since—" Trixie couldn't hear anymore. She couldn't see anymore. She had to get out of here. The coldness was filling her hooves to her head, the pain lancing straight to her heart. Her hooves worked on their own, and before the mare could continue, Trixie took off, bleeding as though her life depended on it. She heard the ponies calling out after her, but she wouldn't stop. She wouldn't stop running until she was free from this place she swore she'd never come back to. Wouldn't stop the pain and the cold went away, until all their memories fled from her, until she was the great and powerful Trixie again. So, Trixie, I believe it's your turn. Why don't you give your report on what you want to be when you grow up? Okay. When I grow up, I want to be a magician just like my mum. My mum is the greatest magician in all of Equestria. She's even performed in Canterlot for the princess. She's my hero, and I'm going to perform with her when I'm old enough. Together we'll be the great and powerful Trixie and... Mum? What's wrong? Mum? Mummy? She's very ill. We don't know what's wrong. The most we can do is make her as comfortable as possible. I can't do magic as well as you can. Nonsense. You're the great and powerful Trixie. You can do anything. I'm sorry. She's gone. Trixie's eyes, wet and red, slowly opened. She didn't know how long she'd run, except that she'd run until her body gave out, and she was pitched into those fitful dreams, the memories she had buried so deeply, forcing their way back out of the vaults and blocks that she had built so carefully. The coldness was still flowing through her despite her flight, the pain constricting in her chest, her heart beating like it was being torn free. No, stop. Stop, She whimpered, putting her hooves over her head and trying to order herself to be calm, to ignore the pain, but her mind and heart were rebelling on her again. I'm a great and powerful Trixie. I don't understand. Tears ran unbidden down her cheeks. Why was this happening? She had put this behind her. She had been strong. She had always been strong. Why wasn't she listening to herself now? She had been strong since the day she died. She'd done exactly what she promised. She was supposed to be the great and powerful Trixie. She had wowed audience and was so lonely. Trixie curled up on the cold ground that had been her bed for the night, weeping softly. It was because she had lost them, wasn't it? The magic books, the hat and cloak, her mum's books, her mum's cloak and hat. It was because of that, because she'd left them behind. Without them, she was just that lonely little filly who had lost her mum. With them, she was the great and powerful Trixie, the showmare, the one who could be strong. Trixie wiped away the tears, swallowed her thick tongue. Yes, if she could get those back, she wouldn't have to feel this again. She had a goal. She would return to Ponyville and demand her belongings back. The pony forced herself to stand on legs that quivered and looked around. She had collapsed near the edge of the everfree forest. Trixie felt a thrill of fortune. Not only had she avoided actually entering the forest in her panic, to get back to Ponyville would be a simple matter of trailing along the edge of the forest. Yes, this was the path she needed to take. She'd be back to normal when she got them back. She started to trail along the forest, trying to ignore the tiny bit of her deep inside that didn't believe that for a second. It took her longer than she would have liked to reach Ponyville again. By the time the town and its outlying farms came into view, Trixie was nearly dead on her feet from exhaustion. She could barely sleep as it was. Every time she lay down during the night, she was plagued by the dreams and emotions that she was desperately trying to deny. She had always kept behind the barriers that surrounded her heart, the pain of her mum's loss, her attraction to fillies, and to Twilight. Despite the fading anger she kept trying to nurse against her, she was even being assailed by guilt now, for treating the ponies poorly, for humiliating them in front of everyone, just like she had been. Days weren't much better either. There was little to eat, and she was frightened to travel too far into the everfree forest to look. She managed to have enough water, but little else. There was nothing else to do but keep putting one hoof in front of the other. Sometimes she walked well into the night, physical activity and pain helping to keep the emotions from overwhelming her. Trixie was terrified to think of how bad she must have looked at this point. Almost there, Trixie murmured to herself. Part of her wanted to confront Twilight immediately and reclaim what belonged to her. But she saw the rows of apple trees in the farm not far from town. Her stomach promptly rebelled over all else, rumbling deep inside of her gut. She began unsteadily to make her way toward the farm. Surely they would miss a few apples. She would pay them back as soon as she got her bits that she left in her trailer. She wasn't picky. She approached the first tree she got to, looking up at the succulent apples. Just one or two. She concentrated, her horn wearily blowing, her underused magic flaring. Despite her lack of strength, 2 apples plucked themselves from the tree, and nearly drooling from the reverie, Trixie gently lowered them to the ground. She stooped her head down and bit into the first apple. "What in tarnation are you doing?" Trixie squealed, hopping away from the apples. Her eyes wide, she looked in the direction of the voice. It was one of Twilight's friends, the orange one, wearing the hat. She looked at Trixie in a mixture of anger, confusion, but mostly shock. "Hey, aren't you Trixie? What happened to you?" she asked, taking a step towards the ragged blue unicorn. There was concern in her voice, but Trixie didn't hear it in her panic. Trixie let out an inarticulate whimper and wheeled around, her legs digging into the ground. "Hey, wait!" Trixie took off, her hooves pattering against the ground, and then buckled. Her body, worn out and weak, finally gave out on her, and she saw the ground rushing up towards her. She was comfortable. That was the first thing she noticed when she awoke. Her body had triumphed over her mind and blessed her with a deep, dreamless sleep, and while she still felt terrible, it wasn't nearly as bad as it had been. She slowly forced her eyes to open, getting an eyeful of pillow. She really was in a bed. A comfortable bed. The first time she'd been in one for... She snuggled into it, a grateful warmth and softness that momentarily blunted the cold that was still writhing deep inside.